There are some artifacts that have no business existing when they do, and the more you look at them, the harder it becomes to explain them away. We're talking about physical objects pulled from the ground, sitting in museums right now that, according to everything we know about ancient history, should not exist. The tools weren't there, the knowledge wasn't there, the technology wasn't there, and yet here they are. Now, most people have heard the phrase out-of-place artifact and immediately think of fringe theories and late-night cable television. And sure, some of those explanations go way off the deep end. But here's the thing. Dismissing the question doesn't actually answer it, because some of these objects carry physical evidence that mainstream archaeology still hasn't fully explained. So today we're going to walk through the ones that matter most, the ones where the physical evidence is undeniable, the debate is still very much alive, and the implications are genuinely staggering. We'll get to the one that researchers have called the equivalent of finding a jet airplane in the tomb of King Tut. But first, let's start with something that came out of a tomb in Egypt and has been sitting in a London museum for over a century, quietly making experts uncomfortable. In the late 1800s, a British archaeologist named Flinders Petrie was doing something that most of his contemporaries weren't. While everyone else was chasing the big dramatic finds, the statues, the burial chambers, the gold, Petrie was obsessing over the small stuff, the tools, the drill cores, the fragments of bowls, and what he found inside the Great Pyramid stopped him cold. It was a tubular drill core made of granite, and the surface of it was covered in spiral grooves, precise, evenly spaced, running all the way around the core with almost no variation. Petrie wasn't looking at carvings or reliefs. This was a physical artifact, a real piece of worked stone, and those grooves told a very specific story about how it was made. Petrie spent years trying to figure out how those grooves got there. He eventually landed on a theory. The Egyptians must have had access to diamonds or some kind of jewel-tipped drill that could cut through granite with that kind of precision. The problem? No diamonds were ever found in ancient Egypt. Not one. And to this day, no one has fully explained where they went or whether they existed at all. Decades later, a machinist named Christopher Dunn decided to test the official explanation. He built his own copper tube drill, used sand and silicon carbide as an abrasive, exactly the method Egyptologists had proposed, and drilled into granite for hours. When he finally pulled the core out and put it under a high-powered microscope alongside a latex cast of Petrie's original, the difference was immediate. Dunn's core showed faint, shallow, inconsistent marks. The ancient core showed deep, clean, perfectly spaced spiral striations, the kind of marks you'd expect from a drill applying enormous, consistent downward pressure, far beyond what a hand-cranked copper tube in sand could produce. The physical evidence is sitting in the Petrie Museum in London right now. You can go look at it. So that raises the question that Petrie himself kept coming back to his entire life. If they didn't have diamonds, and copper and sand can't produce those marks, then what exactly were they using? And that question gets even harder to answer when you look at what they were building with those tools. The precision on the granite boxes inside the pyramids, the diorite bowls, diorite, one of the hardest stones on Earth, cut and shaped with lathe-like accuracy. Some researchers have noted that the planetary tracking on certain ancient devices was accurate to around 1 degree in 500 years. These weren't primitive people guessing. Whatever they were doing it with extraordinary precision, and the tools that could produce that precision have never been found. Now, here is where it gets genuinely difficult to explain, because the drill core is one thing, it's a manufacturing mystery, but the next artifact on this list isn't just mysterious in how it was made, it's mysterious in that it existed at all. Because according to everything historians believed for most of the 20th century, this object should not have been possible for another 1,000 years after it was built. The Antikythera Mechanism, dated to the late 2nd or early 1st century BCE, is understood as the world's first analog computer, created to accurately calculate the position of the sun, moon, and planets. The ancient shipwreck it came from, dated to around 70 to 60 BCE, was discovered at a depth of 45 meters off the shores of Antikythera Island in 1900. Sponge divers pulled it up. It looked like a lump of corroded rock. Nobody thought much of it at first. It wasn't until May 1902 that an archaeologist noticed a piece of rock recovered from the site had a gear wheel embedded in it. And once they started looking closer, what they found inside was extraordinary. The 82 corroded bronze fragments, once assembled, reveal a complex mechanism with 37 gears that track the sun and moon and predict eclipses. Previous reconstructions suggested the mechanism was about the size of a shoebox, with dials on the outside and a complex assembly of bronze gear wheels within, and by winding a knob on its side, the positions of the Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Venus could be determined for any chosen date. Newly revealed inscriptions also appear to confirm that the device could calculate the positions of Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, the other planets known at the time. Before its discovery, historians believed that this level of mechanical complexity didn't exist until the 14th century CE, with the advent of astronomical clocks in Europe. This ancient device predates other known examples of similar technology by more than 1,000 years. It is the most sophisticated mechanism that survives from antiquity. For 1,000 years after the fall of the Roman Empire, no workshop or lone genius produced anything as complex. Think about that for a second. We go from this device, this intricate multi-gear, astronomically precise bronze computer, to 1,000 years of nothing. No one made anything close to it. No one improved on it. It just appeared and then it disappeared, and the knowledge apparently went with it. Given its sophistication, some experts believe it must have been influenced by one of a small pantheon of legendary Greek scientists, perhaps Archimedes, Hipparchus, or Poseidonius. But even that explanation raises more questions than it answers. Because if a civilization was capable of building this, what else were they building that we haven't found yet? More than half of the mechanism is still missing, probably still at the bottom of the sea near the island of Antikythera. We promised you the one that would stop you cold. Here it is. Go back to Egypt. Go to the underground crypt beneath the Temple of Hathor at Dendera. The Dendera carvings are bas-reliefs found in a crypt beneath the Temple of Hathor at Dendera, dating to the late Ptolemaic period. The image known as the Dendera light, at first glance, could be construed as a bulb similar to a Crookes tube, with a lotus socket at one end, a cable traveling underneath, and a snake-shaped cord filament inside. In the most popular representation, a priest is shown holding up the lamp, with a few smaller figures seen below it. Now, mainstream Egyptologists have a clear answer for this. They say the imagery actually depicts a serpent emerging from a lotus flower, contained within an elongated bulb-shaped enclosure, a symbolic creation myth about the sun god Horus emerging from a lotus flower within the womb of the sky goddess Nut. That's a reasonable interpretation. These were deeply symbolic people. Religious imagery was everywhere. But here's the part that keeps the debate alive. The crypt where these carvings are located is sealed. It's narrow, low-ceilinged, and extremely hot. There are no windows. And here is the detail that no one in the mainstream explanation has ever fully resolved. There is no soot on the ceilings. Nowhere in those chambers is there evidence of torch smoke. And yet someone carved incredibly detailed reliefs in there, in the dark, with tools precise enough to still be legible 2,000 years later. So how were they seeing what they were doing? The Baghdad Battery was discovered in 1936 at Kujut Rabu near Baghdad, Iraq, not far from the historical metropolis of Ctesiphon, the capital city during both the Parthian and Sasanian empires. It is a clay pot which encapsulates a copper cylinder, and suspended in the center of that cylinder, but not touching it, is an iron rod. Both the copper cylinder and the iron rod are held in place with an asphalt plug. The archaeologist who discovered it proposed that the artifact may have functioned as a primitive electric battery. According to this theory, if the jar were filled with an acidic liquid such as vinegar, wine, or lemon juice, a chemical reaction between the iron and copper could produce a small electrical charge, roughly 0.5 to 1 volt. This would make the Baghdad battery similar in principle to a galvanic cell, the basic concept behind modern batteries. Researchers have actually built working replicas of it. A recreated Baghdad battery produced 1.4 volts, a significantly higher voltage than previous reconstruction efforts. One researcher argues that the unglazed jar acted as a porous separator between an alkaline electrolyte and the ambient air, creating a cell with a copper vessel inside. So it works. You can build one and generate electricity from it. The question is whether the ancient people who made it knew that. The Baghdad battery has no obvious means of connection to a circuit, which would be a necessity to actually use it. The current professional consensus holds that it was likely ceremonial, but some ancient artifacts from the region appear to have extremely thin and uniform metal coatings, leading some researchers to speculate that electricity could have played a role in electroplating. And here's the piece that ties all of this together: the through line that connects the drill cores in Egypt, the mechanical computer from the bottom of the Aegean, the carvings in the dark crypt, and the clay jar that generates electricity. Every single one of these objects suggests the same thing: that somewhere in the ancient world there was a level of technical knowledge that we have not fully accounted for, knowledge that in at least some cases was lost completely, not improved upon, not passed down, just gone. The Antikythera Mechanism sat at the bottom of the ocean for 2,000 years. The Baghdad battery has since been lost following the invasion of Iraq in 2003. The drill cores sit in a museum in London, largely ignored by the mainstream conversation. And the carvings at Dendera are still there, still unexplained in the one way that actually matters: the soot that isn't on the ceiling. We're not telling you what to believe about any of this, but we are telling you that the physical evidence is real, it's documented, and the questions it raises haven't been answered. The next time someone tells you the ancient world was simple, ask them about the gear wheel that shouldn't have existed for another 1,000 years. Ask them about the spiral grooves that no copper drill could have made. Ask them where the light came from. If this is the kind of thing that keeps you up at night, and honestly it should, drop a comment below and tell us which one of these hit you hardest: the drill core, the mechanism, the battery, or the one we haven't covered yet, because there are more, a lot more. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one, because we're going deeper. The artifacts in this video are just the beginning of a much longer list of things that shouldn't exist, and we're going to go through all of them.